Hi guys, happy Friday. I hope you're all doing well. Please make sure remember you're reaching out if you need anything. And I just know that I miss you guys, and it's just so weird that we haven't been together for a while. So please let me know if you need anything. Today, what we're going to work on. So if you're in seventh grade math or seventh grade honors math or pre-algebra math, we're all going to do the same lesson today. We're going to work on finding the area of two-dimensional shapes. This should be a bit of review, but there might be some shapes that you haven't worked as much with in the past. So our goal for today is to be able to find the area of different two-dimensional shapes. And I would encourage you to make sure that you, on the next slide, are writing down the formulas for the shapes that you're going to be using. So we're going to talk today about 4 different shapes. We're going to talk about a triangle, which is half times the base times the height of a shape. Sometimes it's written as base times height divided by 2. Both of those work fine. The area of a rectangle is just length times width. That's one you're pretty familiar with, I'm sure. The area of a parallelogram is base times height. And the area of a trapezoid, probably the one that you're less familiar with, is a half times the height times the sum of the 2 bases added together, so base 1 and base 2. If for all of these shapes that you're working with, you're going to need to know bases and heights and how you figure those out. So I would encourage you to think about this little trick. Something to remember is that the base and the height are always connected by a right angle. Okay, so there's a right angle, all right, and you've got the base and you've got the height. Over here, the base and the height are connected by a right angle. Over here, the bases and the heights are connected by a right angle. So if you remember nothing else out of this today, and you're working on these shapes and you're like, which ones are which? I don't know what to do. Okay, you've got these 4 formulas here that you're going to need, all right? But the biggest thing you need to remember is that the base and the height are connected by a right angle. So let's work on this one first. What I'm going to do in this video is just do a bunch of examples. I would encourage you to pause it and try them on your own if you think you know them. Some of them you can just do in your head, and that's fine. You are welcome to use a calculator while you're working on these. That's also great too. But I'm going to kind of fly through these pretty quickly. Okay. So when we're working on this shape, the first thing you're going to want to recognize, right, is that it's a rectangle. As soon as you know it's a rectangle, you can mark down your dimensions. It doesn't matter which is which. You've got 56 and you've got 20. To find the area of them, you're just going to multiply 56 times 20. When you take 56 times 20, you end up with 1,120 inches square. Okay? Next example. This is a square, okay, but a square classifies as a kind of rectangle. Yep. So a square is a kind of rectangle. So when we look at this, okay, we've got a side length of 49. These lines mean that those are both the same, so this is also 49. So our area is just going to be 49 times 49. When we multiply that out, 49 times 49, we get 2,401 feet square. Okay? So again, at any point, feel free to pause the video and try the questions on your own. If you also just want to watch through them, that's fine too. This is where it's probably going to be a little bit newer for some of you, and some of you this is just going to be intuitive to figure out. But if you use the area formula, what we can actually do is we can work backwards. So if we look at what this question says, it says, what's the missing length of the figure? The area is length times width. So we know that we have a 16, but we have an unknown, we have a t. So what that means is we do know the area. So if we think about our formula, area equals length times width. That means we've got 208 is equal to 16t. To get t by itself, we're just going to divide both sides by 16. So 208 divided by 16 gives us 13 equal to t. Okay, so that's another way to do to use the rectangle formula. So looking at this shape is not a rectangle anymore. Now we're talking about a parallelogram. I know this is a parallelogram because it has opposite sides that are parallel. but they don't make a 90 degree, they don't make 90 degree corners. Okay, so those are parallel. All right, and we also have these sides that are parallel. Okay, but we don't have 90 degree corners. Right? So to find the area of this shape, we're just going to use base times height as our formula. Okay, looking at this, I know my base and my height are connected by my right angle. So I know I've got 10 and 9. Doesn't matter which one's which, really, because you're just multiplying them together. So the area here is going to be 9 times 10, which is 90 kilometers squared. Okay? Looking at this one, same kind of thing. Okay, we know it's a parallelogram because it doesn't have 90 degree angles, but the sides are parallel. So looking at this, because we're just given a base and we're given a height, we really simply would just multiply these two together. Okay, so this is just going to be 8 times 19, and then 8 times 19 gives us 152 yards square. Okay, so these are pretty straightforward if you follow the formulas. Okay, and IXL starts off like this. Looking at this shape, this sometimes becomes confusing for students because there's this red shape outside, and so sometimes people think this is a triangle. Something to keep in mind, if it's a dotted line, that doesn't actually mean it's a part of the shape. It means that it's an exterior measurement, which means like it's a measurement on the outside, or it could be an interior measurement with a dotted line. It means it's a measurement. It does not mean that it's part of the shape. Okay. So looking at this, what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, we know we're still talking about a parallelogram because it has 4 sides, not 3 sides. We're not talking about this shape right here. Okay, so we're not focused on this. Okay, we're focused on the parallelogram. Okay, so that means what we're going to do here is really simply 91.2 times 7. That's the height, because it's connected by the right angle. So when I take 91.2 times 7, we're going to end up with 638.4 inches square. Okay, so these examples all come from IXL or look like IXL questions, so you'll be pretty familiar with them once you get to IXL. Looking at this, we can go backwards again with a parallelogram formula. What's the missing length from this base figure, or from this figure? What we know here is that the area is 9. So when we think about our formula there, if the area is equal to 9, if area is base times height, that means the 9 is going to go here, okay, for that area. We know the base is 3, but we don't know what the height is there, okay? So what I can do there is divide both sides by 3, and I'm obviously going to get 3 is equal to the height. Okay, if you go backwards and you work this problem through, you know these two should multiply to give you your area. So again, if these are questions that you understand and you know, go ahead and skip to the next shape. That's fine. Okay, this is a similar type of problem. What's the missing length here? Okay, you're doing the same kind of thing. This is your area. This is your total. So you've got 277.4. So that's your area. If your formula is area equals base times height, we're going to take our 14.6 times our height, divide both sides by 14.6 to get your height. Okay, so we take 277.4 divided by 14.6, and we end up with a height of 19 inches. Okay. Oops. So now moving on to triangles. Okay, so the formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height of the triangle. Sometimes this is written as area equals base times height divided by 2. You can do it that way, or you can do it the half in front. Doesn't matter to me. It's whatever makes the most sense to you. So again, thinking about what we know about base times height, or base and height, we know the base and the height are connected by the right angle. There's the right angle there, so obviously we're using these two numbers. Okay. The biggest mistake with triangles is if we've got 1/2 times the base times the height, a lot of people forget the half. Okay. When I do this, I actually like to do it like this: base times height divided by 2. So we're going to take the 9 times the 6.6, and we're going to divide it by 2. The biggest mistake people make is forgetting to divide by 2. They do everything on their calculator, and they forget that piece. So they're going to take 9 times 6.6, which is 59.4, and then we're going to divide it by 2. So we're going to end up with 29 0.7 miles square. Okay, triangles are typically the shape that screw people up the most. So if this is a part that you need to rewatch while you're working on IXL, that's perfectly fine. Looking at this one again, okay, we're given the base and the height pretty clearly. That's no big deal. Okay, we've got these, but we have to remember this isn't just base times height, it's base times height divided by 2. So we're going to take 6 times 3, all divided by 2. Some of you will see in here that you can just cancel those, right? You can divide those by 2 there and get 3 times 3, which is 9. If you don't want to cancel, okay, and you just want to go straight across, you can get 18 divided by 2, which is also going to give you 9 millimeters squared. Okay. So again, if these are questions you need to rewatch, that's perfectly fine. Make sure you're doing that. Okay. Oops. Looking at this question, this is sometimes troublesome to students because of the fact that, again, it has those measurements on the outside of the shape. But realistically, what you're looking at here is that there's the right angle. So if the right angle's there, what you know is that you need the measurements that are attached to it. You're looking for the measurements of the shape. So you want the measurements that are on the solid lines. This 6.2 represents the height of this triangle. That's why it's exterior, because there's nothing interior of it that would stay inside to give you that height. Okay, so we're going to just take area is equal to 7 times 6.2 divided by 2. 7 times 6.2 divided by 2 is 21.7 kilometers square. Okay. If some of you get to questions like this on your IXL where it asks you to work backwards, this really isn't any harder than what we've been doing. And it certainly isn't any harder than the equations we've solved this year. However, this is a little bit of a stretch for some of us. So this area is equal to 75.6. So if I write my formula, or try to write my formula, area equals base times height divided by 2. What I can do then is I'm going to put that 75.6 as the area, and I know the height of this shape is equal to 10.8, but I don't know the base. So I've got base times 10.8 all divided by 2. Okay, so this goes back to solving equations, but what you're going to do here, okay, you can multiply both sides by 2, so you can get rid of that fraction. So 75.6 times 2 is going to be 151.2, I think. 75.6 times 2 is 151.2. And then on this side, what we really have is 10.8b. Okay, so to get b by itself, we're just going to divide both sides by 10.8. Sorry about that, that got messy. So we want b by itself. So we're going to take 151.2 divided by 10.8, and we end up with b equals 14. Okay, if you're in my second period class or my pre-algebra class, this will be an expectation for today. Okay, if you're in third, sixth, or seventh, this will be a stretch. Okay, for those of you that are ready to push. And the last shape we're going to work on today is called the trapezoid. This is probably the most new, but if you follow the formula, you're going to be in just fine shape. It's no big deal. So basically with this, what you're looking at, okay, is you need to be able to identify the height again. Okay, so you know the height, all right, connects the bases. So it doesn't matter which one is base 1 and base 2. It just matters that you know that this is not a base. Okay, if it's the height of the shape, it can't be a base. So what that means we're going to do then, all right, is we're just going to follow our formula. Area is equal to 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. So looking at this problem, what I'd have is 1/2 times 4 times 2 plus 4. So those two bases are right there. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and simplify. So I can work a couple different ways if I want to. Sometimes it's easier to start looking at this. I've got a half times 4. I know a half times 4 is just 2 times 2 plus 4 is 6. So I know my answer here is going to be 12 miles square. Okay. Other people might add the 2 and the 4 first and get the 6, and then multiply by the 4 and get the 24, and then divide it by a half. And that's fine too, or divide it by 2 to get 12. Either way, those are going to be correct responses. Same kind of setup here. Okay, so making sure you're noticing, all right, I've got my height here. It kind of makes an H with the right angle. Okay, so those are the heights and these are the bases. Okay, so when I go ahead and go to solve this, I've got area equals a half times the height, which is 10. Sorry, my iPad's not working right. So I've got a half times 10 times 7 plus 3. I can go ahead and add the 7 and the 3 together. So I've got a half times 10 times 10. I know I could do 10 times 10 and get 100 and then take a half of it, which would give me 50. Or I could go a half of 10, which is 5, times 10, which is also going to give me 50. So either way works just fine. Okay. So your work for today is on Canvas, okay? And it depends on which class you're in for what your assignment is. So please make sure you're checking Canvas to see what your expectations are. Also, please make sure to notice which grade level it's in, okay? Some of you are working in the 6th grade level because the questions dealt more with what we talked about today in the lesson. So if you're working in the 6th grade questions, make sure you're working in 6th grade IXL. If you're working on the 7th grade questions, make sure you're in the 7th grade part of IXL. Please feel free to watch this as much as you need to. Look back on the formula sheet, which I think is on the 3rd slide. So that could be helpful for you. Also, okay, please remember that your assignment from last Friday, on March 20th, is due today. So if you are confused of what that is, go back. It's still posted in Canvas. It's still available. But you need to make sure that that assignment is done by midnight tonight for your attendance. Okay, and make sure your other assignments are done for your other classes too. So hope you're all doing well. Take care. I miss you, and hopefully this made some sense. So talk to you soon.